ready for the Bob Graham Experience.
Okay, get ready for my powerhouse interview with Victoria Yampolsky. Now, she's the founder of the Startup Nation and Power Up Globally. She's a strategic CFO, a serial entrepreneur, and the champion, as she puts in her LinkedIn profile, of female founders and advocate for fair access to capital. Now, what I like and what fascinates me is she's an immigrant from Russia. She came to the US when she was 16 years old. And she is in a place now where she talks about three areas that don't get enough attention. First, she talks about financing for startups. Second, she talks about mindset and its role for founders, entrepreneurs. And third, she talks about the role of women in entrepreneurship and advocates for them to be more involved and has some programs to help them get more involved and be more successful. This is one of those interviews. She is a dynamo. She covers so much great information for any entrepreneur, but especially if you're a woman entrepreneur. You're going to love this interview with Victoria Yampolsky. Here it is. Hey, Victoria, it's great to have you here. I'm excited to hear your story, so I'm going to set you up with a real easy first question. Tell us how you got to this place in your life.
Hi, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here. And this is actually not a very easy question because it involved a lot of soul searching and the process of getting honest with myself about what I truly wanted in life and also getting courage to go after it. So I'm an immigrant. So I came to the United States from Russia almost 30 years ago. And like a child of immigrants, I wanted a stable profession. And so my initial degree was in computer science. And I thought I wanted to be a programmer. That quickly turned out not to be the case. Even as I was graduating from college, I realized that this is not my passion. And I went into IT consulting, which was a business side of IT. It again didn't really satisfy me. I thought I'm going to like finance. I went to business school. I ended up on Wall Street. Again, to disappointing results because my creative nature as well as quantitative needed both an outlet. And in any corporate job, especially junior positions, your role was very narrowly defined, and it didn't really allow all of my passions to have a fulfillment path. So about 13 years ago, I became an entrepreneur. And my first company, I used to act as a child. So I had passion for creative arts as well as finance and computer science. So I decided to go into film and I set up a film financing company. And then for the next 2.5 years, I embarked on a crazy journey of partnering with a producer, optioning a slate of films, and trying to raise $165 million as my first raise with no experience. Of course, it's not a surprise that they did not work.
I wonder why.
Well, that coming from Wall Street, where people were dealing with billions of dollars, 165 million did not seem like a big amount. And mathematically, that's the number that I got based on all of my expenses. So I really had no reality check in terms of like what is possible, what is not possible, which was good and bad. The good thing is that I went for it. The not so good thing was that I didn't calibrate my expectations and potentially did not choose the best path forward. And so that was really the first time in my life that I failed miserably and let a lot of people down and was in a very difficult place professionally and personally. And it was absolutely necessary for my growth because it taught me that I can get up and I will be fine no matter what happens to me. And that actually led me to starting the business that I still have to this day called the Startup Station. So I realized that just like producers are very passionate about their films and, their intellectual babies and creative babies, startup founders are also passionate about their intellectual babies. And neither have really much idea about how to bring them to market. They don't really think about it. They're more concerned about how the product is going to work or how the film is what the film is going to be about. So my business and financial expertise was useful in both areas. And so when I started my startup practice, very quickly I focused on finance because it was easier to explain to founders, whether you know cash flow or you don't know what cash flow is. That was a kind of a binary answer. Whereas if you start talking about strategy and whether you know how to get to market, they may think that they know even if they don't. Whereas with finance, that was a much easier thing to point out that that's where they may need help. And so my company started just as a consultancy. It grew to be a finance education platform where I began teaching finance classes to entrepreneurs, first in New York, and now this program is available online. And that kind of goes with my passion of public speaking and acting and interacting with people in multiple areas. So I really love the educational portion of it. We still put out a lot of content every week for the startup community, which is free. And then, of course, we have the paid curriculum for those who would like to get more technical help. And finally, about 2.5 years ago, I realized that what I really wanted to do was to help female founders because they had a tougher time raising money. And I didn't quite know how to help them, but I knew that I had to involve finance. And because of my own personal development journey and because of the work I did for the Bank of America Institute of Women's Entrepreneurship at Cornell, I realized that the answer was not only to help them with financial confidence, but also to help them develop a resilient mindset. And so over time, that gave birth to the program that I'm scaling right now. And I have the second program running called the Female Founder Mindset Gym, which is at the moment a 12-week program. It's going to be extended to 2 years. And it's a combination of mindset training, business training with a big focus on finance, and mentorship. And so it took me really a long time to come to this point. And what are all the skills I would say that I've gained along the way, even my computer science background, which gives rise to algorithmic thinking, and that I apply absolutely everywhere. They were all important milestones on my journey.
Can I ask you some questions about what you just went through?
Yes, absolutely. I know it was a lot.
No, it was amazing. I love people's stories because they're never linear. You know, A gets to B, but A often gets to C. But by the time you get to K and L, it all makes sense somehow. So what are some of the biggest problems you see entrepreneurs experiencing these days? And then contrast that or add on to that with the challenges that women entrepreneurs find.
Well, my expertise is mostly in the area of finance, so I will speak to what challenges entrepreneurs face when they do not pay attention to this extremely important function. I would say the problems can arise different problems will arise at different stages. So when you're fundraising, if you do not think through the financial feasibility of your business model or the financial consequences of your various strategic decisions, you will come off as a weaker value proposition to investors, because the second they start asking you questions in terms of what are your metrics, what is the customer acquisition cost, what are the unit economics, what is it going to take for you to reach your goals, what is the milestone that you're trying to reach with this race. Yes, you may have some numbers, but they're not connected to strategy. The gap will very quickly become obvious. Now, when you already raise money, the issues are different. Here, you already have capital, and you need to make sure that you don't waste it. And you understand as you start executing on your strategy what's working and what's not as you begin getting feedback from the market. So again, finance is a critical function that can give you that intelligence if you set the proper foundation up at the right time and you start getting this information and analyzing it and use it in your business. And so the issues that I see here is that they don't do it. They only have bookkeepers or accountants, which are critical parts of operations. However, they do not give the information in terms of understanding which parts of strategy work. What does it mean, the financial results that we're getting? What does it mean for what's going to happen forward, to plan a little bit ahead so that we don't end up in a cash crunch, etc. If you don't have the financial oversight or the financial management cycle set up, the eventual unfortunate thing is going to happen, which is the growth will stall because you will get to the point where you will run out of whatever things you were doing, or you will start running out of cash. And unfortunately, these are the things that I see consistently with my clients. I'll give two examples. One of them was a female founder running a vitamins company, and she did not consider the working capital. Now, working capital is this confusing term for some, so I will explain it a little bit. So it's not the operating expenses. It's the capital that arises because there can be timing difference between when you sell something and you book it on your books and when you actually get cash for it, or when you have to pay for something and the cash exchange actually happens. So, for example, if you have inventory, you have to pay for inventory before you sell it.
Right.
It's a liquidity need. That was her case. She had a 6-month cash conversion cycle, which is the amount of time that it takes from when she spent money to get inventory to when she got money for selling the product. So as she began scaling, her revenues went up and her cash began to dwindle, and she ended up in a turnaround situation despite being in a very strong position from getting from cash.
Because she needed to have more inventory
to satisfy
sell. So her costs were going up as her revenue was coming up, but the lag was getting deeper and deeper.
And 6 months of operations in advance.
And that looks bad on her balance sheet.
It's not like that it looks bad. She was running out of cash.
Right,
It could be solved with putting certain financing structures in order.
Sure.
She got the financing advice in advance who helped her understand how to go through this transition. It is a good thing to grow, but what very often happens with companies is that they fall into that trap. The other example can be if you work with B2B clients and you have accounts receivables that arise as a result of that, which is you sell something, but they will only pay you 60, 90, or 120 or whatever it is days later. Again, you have to finance that lag in operations. And if you don't plan for it, you will run out of cash. That's actually the story of my other client who is right now filed for bankruptcy.
Oh, my.
This is an extreme, I would say. These are extreme circumstances.
Will they be able to come out of it and resurrect the company, or is it probably going away?
There is he has a turnaround plan that I help him put together, and so he will come out of bankruptcy. The bankruptcy is so that he negotiates better terms for paying his vendors and other people whom he owes money. But the reason why he ended up in that situation has to do with financial oversight. And in both cases, those two outcomes were avoidable. Now, it can also happen that you may incur a market shock that is very hard to plan for. But most often, finance will help you plan for contingencies and have a little bit of a runway, even if those things happen, so that you don't go out of business. So these are just a couple of examples of what can happen if you don't use finance. And finance is nothing to be scared about. It's just like another language. It takes time to learn a new language. And it's an important language because that's the only means with which your company speaks to you. So,
well, and I think that's the very issue. It's the only language with which your company ultimately speaks to you. Lots of people don't want to hear what it has to say because those numbers don't lie. I can tell myself that my company is doing really well, and I can believe that until I look at those numbers, and then suddenly it's like, well, oh, shoot, that's not working so well. And I think when I talk to owners, even smaller businesses, some big businesses, they don't want to look at those numbers because they know what they're going to say deep down, but they don't want to hear that message. Do you ever find that to be the case?
So I would say that can be an issue where a person doesn't want to face reality because it is painful. Nobody likes to be proven wrong. And that actually goes back to the mindset and having mental flexibility to adjust to circumstances so that you can succeed long term. So ego often gets in the way, right? And so if you have a big ego and if you don't want to listen, whether it's to people who are around you or to market feedback, over time you will end up in unless you get very lucky, which is also possible. But most often than not, you will end up in a difficult situation for your business. But the other issue that I see is that people simply do not have the mechanism set up in order to interpret the financial data and understand what it means for their business. Because it's not just enough to look at the financial statements and say, oh, we had a good month, or we had a bad month, but we're going to do better next month. Yeah. If you don't understand what caused those results, then you don't know what you need to change in the way how you run your business. And that's why creating proper financial financial mechanisms and oversight and reconciliation processes are important to collect that intelligence and present possible solutions in terms of which functions need to be tweaked in order to produce more optimal results for the business overall, and especially interdependencies between the functions, as well as the company experiences a change in direction, where it's growth, whether it's launching new products, whatever it is, which will happen as the company evolves. So I would say it's fear. A lot of companies we know that didn't want to adapt, they ended up in the back of the line, such as automakers, for example, and many others. Anybody who doesn't adapt to AI will definitely be in the back of the line too. That's something that's obviously going on right now. But then for small businesses, I think the issue is that they simply do not get the help. They think having an accountant and a bookkeeper is enough, and it's not.
Wow, that's a lot. So let you are passionate. I'll give you that. And you make finance. I like that you're making finance real, because I think a lot of people just run scared from it, or it's like that's for other people, or that's for, the ones that have stocks. They have investors in that regard. But I think every business can benefit from understanding the financial aspects of it, even at the early phases, because I think often those are indicators of where you're going long before you realize where you've gone. So you talked about mental flexibility. I think that's a phrase you used, right?
Yes.
So let's talk through that. What do you mean by that, and what are the challenges, and how do you help people address that?
Well, mental flexibility, in my mind, is the self-awareness, and
I'm in trouble.
and having the willingness to listen to other people and consider their points of view, even if they don't agree with your own, because you can only benefit from additional information. And it's also having courage to face whatever the reality is. If the reality is that you need to change strategy and, so to speak, fail, it's the mental flexibility is how you deal with it, what is your relationship with failure, how you process it through your own being, and whether you're able to move on, and whether you equate a change in your business that will inevitably happen as you're creating something new with a change of yourself as a human being. And so when that equality happens, that's a very worrying situation. And that's why mindset training is important. And people, that's what people call, developing resilience. But with that, you also develop openness to react to situations so that you stay ahead instead of playing catch up or being left behind.
So you're not teaching meditation or affirmations or things like that, or are you?
In my finance practice, I am not a psychologist, so we focus on specific solutions that they need to adapt for their business and the problems they need to be solved. In Female Founder mindset training is a combination of things. Part of them are affirmations. We do not do meditation during the meeting, but they are encouraged to start that practice at 3 minutes a few times a week, because it helps with focus and it helps with compartmentalization for your brain, so that you're able to stay in the moment and not let things that may worry you affect your productivity. So it increases your productivity over time. But, the point of these meetings is also to take a pause, because when you take a pause and when you learn to take a pause, it increases awareness, it gives you perspective, and it actually increases mental flexibility that is so crucial for executives in order to understand the big picture and to make sure that their company continues to move to the big goals.
I know one of the challenges I had in the first, until recently, honestly, was my mindset was always that everyone else knew what they were doing, and I was the only person who hadn't figured it out. And there was some magic answer that all those people I saw doing great knew, And if I could figure out what that magic answer was. And then in the last couple of years, as I've coached more business owners in different capacities, I've started to recognize that no one really knows what the heck they're doing. They might know what they're doing today in the moment, but we really don't, you have a vision for what you want to do, but you really don't know the pathway there. And I think that was probably the biggest shift in my mindset, was realizing that there wasn't like this club of successful business owners. And if I could just figure out the key to the door, I could get in. And even the most successful people, you read the books about them and they're like, well, I was always worried about this. They're never, Steve Jobs to the day he died, he didn't get, okay, I got the iPad, I'm done. He was pushing, and Elon Musk trying to get to Mars, and, the woman who runs Spanx, constantly innovating. And Sarah Blakely, is it? Right?
Sarah Blakely.
There you go. I couldn't remember her first name once you said it. So, but I think when you think about that, do you find that in your work, and is that part of the challenge in terms of mindset?
Absolutely. I would say there are two things here. One is control. We're all going to be in control. So that's why we want to know what is it that we need to do in order to ascertain a certain outcome. Mm-hmm. And especially in entrepreneurship, it is not possible. You have to be comfortable with uncertainty. And what instead you derive your power from is from believing in yourself and also having faith in the unknown, and it will lead you to where you need to be. And all you can do is focus on what you need to do every day towards reaching your goals. And in order to maintain that confidence and in order to maintain that focus, that's where training your mind on a daily basis comes in. And I personally use a statement from Napoleon Hill. I don't know if you've heard of this book.
Think and Grow Rich. Yep.
So he's written an algorithm. Since I'm a computer science person, I like systematic approach to everything. An algorithm for reaching your goals, where it's a quantitative goal or a qualitative goal. So I adapted the statement that he specifies in the first chapter to my goals, both qualitative and quantitative. And I have a goal, what I'm willing to give up, the timeline for reaching that goal, and the action plan. And so every morning I read that and I do what's in the statement. And that gives me confidence that I'm moving towards my goals. And then whatever comes back as market feedback, I train my mind to accept it and react to it instead of being upset if it's not exactly what I wanted. That is another key thing, is not being attached to a specific outcome, but having faith in the process to getting to your goals.
Do you remember what it said this morning that you read?
Oh, it's the same statement that I read.
And would you share that with us?
No, the statement is personal.
Okay.
However, the book is available widely on Amazon. And they give examples of how that statement can be written. And then I think, so they give the algorithm for writing a statement, and then they also give an example of the statement. And for every person, it will be its own statement.
Okay. And you're talking about both sides of the equation here, if you think about it. You're talking about taking action and having faith in the actions, but you're also looking at the results, right? The finances are the results. And so which one is ultimately more important to the entrepreneur?
I would say that mindset will be the key to everything, including being brave about interpreting financial results and taking the necessary action based on them. But it's not just the financial results. It's how you approach your fundraising process. It's how you deal with disagreements on your team, how you react to new opportunities. It's how you decide when to ask for help. A lot of entrepreneurs feel so overwhelmed because they feel like they need to do everything. They put themselves in the corner, how I do not have money. If only I had money, I would be able to do this, and they cannot get out of this corner. And unfortunately, the trick that must happen to your mind is that you gotta decide that you will have the money first, that it will happen, because this will spur you to action. It will free you from the paralysis that you cannot do something. If you believe that the money will come, then you will be free to potentially spend a little money here and there to get the help that you must get in order for you to get the money. But if you currently constantly in a paralysis, then you can't do anything, and then you're not going to get out of it. And that's especially for early stage entrepreneurs, that's the mindset shift that that's the mindset trap that I see them in, and that's a mindset shift that I advise them to take, even though if it seems counterintuitive, because they do not have the money. How can they believe that they will? That's how it works. You gotta believe so that you will do whatever it takes.
And if you believe, of course, you approach the world differently, and opportunities that you might overlook start coming your way.
Exactly.
I've spent a lot of time in the last year looking at this whole aspect, and it's really, that's the whole idea of abundance, right?
Yes.
You help me, I help you, it doesn't matter, and we both benefit, and someone else might benefit, and it comes back in a different way. I know that took me a while to grasp and really accept, and there was a period where I just sort of went with it. Do you find that people have to kind of be led there, and they don't even see the markers? Like now I see the things that happen in my life that I wouldn't have expected. Like talking about this with you today is exactly what I need for a variety of reasons. And I think 6 months ago, I would have been like, oh, geez, we're going to talk about mindset. That's such junk. I can't believe we're talking about mindset. Now I see the opportunity from that. And I think it's looking at things more as the opportunity than, oh, I got to do this thing. Oh, does that come into play at all?
I would say that, you know what, I lost my train of thought. Would you repeat the question?
So I was saying that, do you find that you have to drag people along into this idea of you've got to believe and do it? That, at first they start to say that they believe, but it's words, not really belief.
Right. So mindset training is something that happens over time. Just like, that's why we call our program Female Founder Mindset Gym. So when you go to the gym to train your body, you cannot expect to emerge an Olympic athlete after 1 month, or even to be in a good shape. Now, you will be in a better shape than when you started, but depending on what shape you came into the gym, you will get different results. It's exactly the same with mindset training, right? It depends on what you come in, which is driven by your upbringing, your societal, cultural challenges, the models that you've seen growing up, and whatever beliefs you have created as a result of that. So the first thing that must happen in order for anything to shift is that the person must realize that this is important. And education is part of it, and that's why we're doing an event on October 22nd, 23rd, specifically on that, called Breaking Barriers, Female Founders in the Emotional Side of Venture Investing, where we're going to discuss the subjective side of venture investing, which is how do investors evaluate teams? Like what qualities do they look for in founders? We know that the team is one of the most important factors of due diligence, so how does that happen? Right? And it's not a secret. They look for specific qualities, which they find through asking certain questions. But why? Because those qualities are linked to success. Now, you're not shortchanged if you don't have those qualities, or they're in a different stage of development. You can develop them by training your mind. Now, in order for you to believe that you can do it, you also have to be in a certain self-awareness journey and believe in your plasticity and have certain knowledge that this can be done. So it's definitely, I wish that I had this knowledge many years ago, but
you and me both.
I didn't know about it, and I didn't know that I can do something about it. And now that I do, it is my mission to bring it to as many founders around the world so they feel empowered to take control of their journeys and not feel scared by stats, finance, whatever it is that may prevent them from going after their dreams. It is all in the head. However, I'm not going to say that finance is less important. It's important, but finance is just one business function of the business, right? You have other business functions that are also important. So I'm also not going to say that finance is the most important business function. It's just something's overlooked. So mindset will empower founders to make sure that their business functions equally well across all business functions and moves them towards their goals.
So one more question around mindset, and that is, You said it took you a while to realize this and you would have liked to have understood it sooner. Do you think that's because you weren't ready for it, or because it wasn't really as important to us in the whole ecosphere of business?
So definitely, it is my firm belief that they should be taught in high school and college. This idea that you can train your mind, how to train your mind, what does that mean, how this impacts your decisions, how it impacts your stress levels, how it impacts how you build relationships with people, resolve conflict, your overall happiness, etc. Careers you pursue, like what you feel is possible for you versus not possible, etc. So part of it is definitely not being exposed to it. I had a very technical education throughout my life, and I actually felt that I should have taken more humanities. That's the feedback I gave to a dean of my computer science college. Have more humanities. We're not producing robots here, producing people who will eventually have to talk to somebody, not just computers.
Don't be telling the introverts that are getting engineering degrees or computer science degrees that's going to scare them.
But it would help them to learn how to communicate better, just like everybody, just to get their ideas across so that they feel heard as opposed to not heard. But yes, of course, we have different personalities to consider. And yes, the other part of it is because I didn't have the education, and because of growing up, I didn't have that information either. I did not understand that this was even something to think about. I didn't question my decisions, I just made them, right? So I was a reactor. And it took me a while to understand that this can be different.
Okay. As an overthinker, I'm with you. Everything. So I'm amazed when someone says they make decisions and just move on. I'm like, wow. What do you do with you must have a lot of free time. I mean, I'm going to rethink this interview for probably the next, 12 hours, maybe 38 hours. So I guess I have some mindset work to do.
I'm a very fast decision maker because my brain works very fast. But this can also be a challenge because sometimes I miss certain things that I should have considered. So I'm learning to take a pause. Especially if there is an important decision to be made, or especially if I got some unpleasant news, I learn not to do anything. This is mindset training. My first impulse is to tell them what I think or to react. But that is not the most optimal. And so this is something that one can learn.
How long a pause do you typically take? I'm curious.
It depends on what it is. If I have to consider, if there is a conflict that I need to resolve, then I would need to make sure that my emotions subside and then I have clarity. And so that can take a week, that can take a few days, like whatever it takes, it takes. If there is something that I need to figure out, I actually set a deadline for me to at least put something down on paper as a brainstorming, and then I have people to ask for advice, and then I have a timeline before I need to make a final decision.
Okay. I want to shift to women in business, especially. Let me give you some statistics. I had the privilege of teaching engineering students at Johns Hopkins University for a couple years. And I was fascinated that 50% of the students getting engineering degrees were female. In 1980, 34% of people in the engineering field were female. In the last couple of years, that number has not increased, but decreased to around 18%. Can you talk about why you think that may be and some of the challenges you may have experienced, assuming you have?
So I come from the former Soviet Union, which had a very strong STEM program. Even in my class, I was in a specialized school where there was a big focus on math, physics, and computer science.
Okay.
I was the only girl. Now, at the time, I thought that was really cool. One girl and guys, I had the time of my life. Now I think,
I don't want to go there.
but then I started thinking, why was I the only girl? I guess I do not think that women have less skills in sciences. I do think that um, societally they may be exposed less to certain things growing up. Like, for example, boys are bought games where they need to exercise their brain, where women are bought dolls, girls are bought
Okay.
dolls that they nurture their motherly instinct. There's nothing wrong with dolls or
Mhm.
cars, but it would be nice if there were also educational games for girls as well, or they were not gender specific. So um, so I think some of it, I'm not a sociologist, has to do with that. Me personally, I never felt that I know less math or less computer science, or less anything. I didn't feel really constricted by my gender, nor in my 6 years that I spent in a corporate world, even though there were less women both in technology and in finance, I didn't really feel at my lower level any problems. I do not know what would be if I stayed there, and whether I would feel that there is a glass ceiling or there would be some problems with promotion or anything like that. I imagine there would be. And part of it has to deal with how we split responsibilities at home. And a lot of women have to take a step back in their careers in order to care for the children, or feel
Sure.
like they have to choose between family and career. And then whenever we figure out a more balanced approach to that, I feel like those things may change. And people are talking about it. So companies are more flexible in terms of working arrangements. So I think that
Mhm.
this is already changing. So yes, I mean, I think that some of it is whatever role models you have at home, whatever in a certain country, whatever the uh, models of raising different genders are, but some of it ultimately is you. If a girl has a champion around them who encourages them and tells them that they can do whatever they want, then they can go into space, and we have space astronauts who are women who are not afraid
Right.
of anything.
Okay. So what's the future hold for you?
The future for me, so I'm also a poet. I published a book of poetry this year, so I plan to be doing more of the events
What
where
don't you do? You're like the ultimate Renaissance person.
there are some things I do not do, like marketing. That's my pet peeve.
Okay.
I do not like it, but I have a great
You're on
team.
a podcast talking about your business. This is
That's
marketing.
that's what
You,
I
s-
like.
you seem like you like this.
Yes, I like this part of this, but
Okay.
I do not like doing social media or
Okay.
email marketing, and the operational side of it. And frankly, have very little idea how to do paid advertising, stuff like that. So there are some things. There are many, many things that I do not do. I just allowed myself to do the things that I do love doing, and then not having to choose between them. One of them was to take my poetry to the next level. I've been writing poetry for most of my life, and then I'd like to scale the program Female Founder Mindset Gym around the world. And make it a gold standard for any early stage founder who wants to start her business, and then eventually make it available to all founders.
Okay. So it could grow into men as well.
It may, but once we have to bridge the gender funding gap, which is right now very wide. So
Okay.
after we bridge it and we have enough unstoppable female entrepreneurs, then we can start helping everyone.
So talk more about that gym that you've set up and what that looks like, and what someone would see if they got involved in that.
Sure. So the gym Female Founder Mindset Gym has three components. One is 12 1 hour mindset sessions, which are all oriented at dealing with various challenges of an entrepreneurial journey, which is managing setbacks, improving prioritization, how not to choke, how to not to feel overwhelmed,
Okay.
how to improve confidence, all of the things that
Sounds like all the stuff I need.
a lot of, yeah, everybody needs it. We just
Okay. Well, I
adapted.
was going to say that was the next
Yes,
piece.
yes, everybody needs it. We adapted it specifically to the challenges most often faced by early stage founders, and specifically women. And so they go through these 12 hours where they become aware of their thought processes, and they learn certain strategies of how to recognize what's happening in their mind and how to stop those processes so that they can direct their energy in the most positive way. They also have 7 Q&A sessions. This is the core blocks of building a necessary business foundation, with 3 sessions dedicated to various financial aspects. That is typically an overlooked aspects in a lot of accelerator and incubator programs that I find can really stop them as they approach the fundraising process and setting their business for growth later on. And then they have a 3-month access to the mentorship platform called the Fourth Effect, where they can connect with 2,000 plus senior executives and choose those who can eventually join their board of advisors.
All female or both genders?
This platform is encouraging female board advisors to serve on female-led boards. But of course, they can also go beyond that platform and look for advisors of both genders. The point is that we're making it easy for them to get the help to surround themselves with women. And it's very important to have women role models, because they are women who are more successful than themselves, who do not limit themselves, who have the knowledge that they may not have, as well as the networks and open doors. And a lot of women statistically do not look for help. And it's proven that regardless of a gender, if you have mentorship and support, you will get further in life. And so through our program, they get peer support because they're in a group of 15 to 20 founders all going through the same challenges, and they can get senior support through this platform. So for me, it's really the combination of mindset training, business training, and mentorship that can set them up over time for success. And of course, everybody will get different results depending on how much work they want to put into the program, which is fine because they are on their journey and it's our job to support them. And that's why we want to extend the training to 2 years to completely rewire the brain.
Okay. And what kind of successes have you had through that program so far?
So the program is new. We're running the second program right now. We have incredible testimonials from the first program. We do not have the resulting business results because it's too early for those results to be produced. But even from the testimonials we're seeing from the second program, we're seeing that they became more aware of their thought processes and how their thought processes impact their decision making. They've become better at managing their stress levels, etc. So our next step is to launch 6 to 10 programs, and I think in 6 to 9 months we can really see what the results of the training are going to be, especially if we're able to extend it beyond 3 months. So have them in the program to continue to train their mind.
Do they go through the 12?
You go to the gym, you go to the gym and then you stop.
Right.
You may go back to thinking the same things and doing the same things as before.
Okay. And the 12 1-hour courses, do they typically binge those over a weekend, or is it more often that they do it one a week or one every 2 weeks? How do you see the use of this? I'm curious.
The program is 3 months. So they go once a week for the mindset training. And then sometimes they also have a Q&A session, which is another hour. So their commitment is 1 or 2 hours a week. Once they're ready to join the mentorship platform, that's a platform so they can decide how much time they spend on it. They get extra help through the platform, access to the Angels Club, a 2-hour governance boot camp, and weekly additional Q&A sessions with one-on-one help. So there is a lot of help available through this platform, but we're encouraging them to only start using the complimentary membership when they're ready to dedicate the time.
Okay. And do you see a lot of networking among the women in this? It seems like it would just be a really good area for just women with similar interests to start bonding.
So from our prior programs, some women continue to stay in touch, especially those whose ventures are, more similarly aligned in terms of their progress. With this program, I'm only running the Q&A sessions. I have a professional facilitator who runs the mindset session, so I very honestly cannot answer the question about networking. So we're about halfway through the program, but I will ask that question, as we're a little bit closer to the end. I would imagine that, yes, that some women will remain in touch with each other. But it just even if they don't, just virtually by them coming together on a weekly basis and not feeling isolated and alone, it helps. You don't need to be friends with everybody.
Yeah. Yes. So tell me, you said that you use your computer science background. How do you use that? Because so many times I talk to people and it's like they studied something in school and they don't do it anymore. How do you apply it, if at all?
One of the main things you learn in computer science is algorithmic thinking. And so an algorithmic thinking to me is the way how you accomplish tasks. So you can create an algorithm for anything in your life, how to structure your day, how to cook a meal, how to create an operating process, how to build a financial model, how to scale a program, like what needs to happen and in what order. It helps me prioritize, it helps me define interdependencies, and it helps me put the right people in place so that the project overall continues to move forward, and it helps me think a little bit ahead, almost like a chess game. So I apply algorithmic thinking in absolutely every aspect of my life. Even when I'm packing, I think ahead what I'm going to pack and then which order, and then I just have to execute on it. And now that I'm doing daily walks, which is an incredible tool to get perspective and to quiet your mind, it allows me to take a moment to think about what needs to get done so that when I start working, I just have to do it. It's very efficient. So I'm able to achieve much higher productivity through that skill.
How far do you walk typically?
I just walk for 40 minutes. I go
Okay.
see the water. I look at the water because that calms me down, and I walk back.
Okay. Wow. Okay. You're in the Philadelphia area, right? Is
New
that
York
correct?
City.
New York. Okay. Well, you've got lots of water in New York. Nice.
Well, I can go to Central Park, look at the water, or I can go to East Side and look at the river. These are my options. And I choose each day, okay, so which water do I want to look at?
Must be nice. I wish I had that many water options near me. So part of what I do, Victoria, is I do what I call the Bob Graham experience. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I ask every one of my guests these questions, and believe it or not, the answers are so fascinating. So I know you're anxious for this, probably. So I knew I could get that laugh out of you. So first off, what's the last thing you read?
So the book that I'm reading right now is called The Founder's Mentality, which is a book written by two Bain consultants, and they have surveyed around 500 founders and have come up with 3 qualities that define a founder's mentality. And then they have, and also the challenges that startups and then companies experience on their as they evolve and grow, and how the fact that founders lose founders mentality manifests, and then companies starting to experience those crises of growth, and what can be done in every stage in order to alleviate the situation. I find that fascinating. The book that I read just before is called The Startup Nation, which is the book how it explores how Israel became the center of innovation in such a short time, and how no other country really was able to repeat the same feat, considering its size and considering how many startups and how much innovation comes out of it. This was a fascinating book. And then what emerged for me, specifically, we're not going to talk about the country-specific things, the presence of universities or government policies, etc. But what emerged as a cultural thing is that they have a very high tolerance to failure in Israel. It's okay to fail. It's okay to start a startup. Nobody is, your mother is not going to shame you because you didn't earn money. And so that tolerance to failure is critical when you start a new business, because you're not afraid of it. And so it makes you resilient. And then they have, I wouldn't want to say FOMO, they have an urgency that, kind of what the two Bain guys call the insurgent mindset, and then what you mentioned, like Steve Jobs, like he never lost the will to create new things, even though he's created an iPad and he's created an iPhone, obviously improved Mac, etc. So they have the same skill and the same urgency, and so it prompts them to act. They have a bias for action, which is very important, instead of bias for thinking, let me figure everything out perfectly and then I'm going to act. They have a bias for action. So those 2 things I think can be trained with mindset training, and some other things, of course, they are just in a position to take advantage of them.
Wow, that's fascinating. I'm just thinking about the Israeli students that I taught when I was teaching college, and they would take a setback, write a paper, and it wouldn't get the grade they were expecting, and they would immediately want to meet and not be like, hey, this should have been they asked the question that was the best question. What can I do to make it better? And that to me, so it really is not the failure mindset versus someone else who comes in and says, I really think this was an A. I spent 43 hours on it. I looked up all these things. You have to change the grade. And I think that temperament, I never really thought about it, but that would be a more productive entrepreneurial temperament as well.
I found this book fascinating, and I also found it fascinating how so many countries try to replicate, set up accelerators and incubators, throw money into it. Like, for example, Singapore may be set up to replicate, but because they have a very conservative mindset, very risk averse, it's not good for entrepreneurship, and it sits so deep in them that it's very hard.
Where would the U.S. fall in the continuum of that entrepreneurial willingness to fail, do you think, versus, conservative thinking?
Well, it depends for whom we're talking about.
Overall, big picture.
I mean, because there is an inequity in people having access to capital, and then some of that inequity translates in people not being confident to look for capital. So I would say, of course, U.S. is a leader in innovation. There's no question about it. And it has the resources and, educational resources and capital resources, very well developed venture capital system that supports innovation, etc. In terms of groups that have challenges accessing capital, they can use some mindset training. And of course, some other things need to happen on the venture capital side in order to make that access available too. So from my perspective, as I think about the gender funding gap, the answer has to be changes on both sides. Founders work on what they can do. VCs become more open up their networks. Regulatory support is there to encourage investments in different areas. And then we also have more media exposure to highlight stories of successful founders so that those who may have bias in terms of performance of founders that come from different backgrounds, they rewire their brain over time as well.
I like all that. Wow, that's a lot. So next question.
I spent a lot of time thinking about it.
No, I see that. The next question, your most important inspiration.
So my personal inspiration is my grandfather. He is no longer with us. Unfortunately, he was a very successful scientist and achieved a lot professionally. But for me, he was my grandfather. And then he was always a model of what it means to be a good human being. Somebody who's kind, somebody who's generous, and somebody who has a very high level of integrity. And so I would say that's my personal model.
Was he in Russia your whole life, or did he come to the U.S. when you came to the U.S.?
They came about 5 years after we came to the
Okay. Okay. So you got to see him more. I was afraid you saw him in Russia and then you came here and never saw him again.
No, I saw him quite a bit as I was growing up, and then I saw him a lot after 5 years after they came.
Okay.
Here. He only died 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So yeah,
sounds like a big loss to you, but it sounds like you also carry it on every day.
I actually, my grandmother also meant a lot to me, and they had a beautiful marriage, and I have their portraits on my table in the living room. So every day I say hi to them. And
that's awesome. Now, you were going to talk about another inspiration. You said that was your personal one, I think.
Yes. And then another inspiration for me is somebody is a female entrepreneur, and I will name several, who not only are successful professionally, but also give back. And I have two examples here, which are Sarah Blakely, who's posting a lot of inspirational content on social media and cares a lot about supporting aspiring female entrepreneurs. And of course, is an amazing story herself as somebody who's built her company from nothing, and Melinda Gates, who is dedicating her life to promoting equality and to championing different initiatives. So I respect both of them. And of course, there are many more. But
absolutely.
These are the people that I admire.
I would think that you admire anyone who takes on the challenges of entrepreneurship on some level, right? I
I
mean,
admire any business owner because I
yeah,
know what it takes.
no,
Actually, I admire anybody who's courageous enough to go after their dreams, no matter what those dreams are, whether it's a business, whether it's to become a songwriter, whether it's to join a company and work on creating ethical AI, like
right.
whatever it is. You don't need to be an entrepreneur to do something impactful as long as it's impactful for you.
Absolutely. I like that. Your biggest daily challenge, Victoria?
My biggest daily challenge is to be patient with myself and with others. And like I mentioned before, I'm a very quick decision maker and I'm a very quick thinker. So sometimes even I can't catch up with what I'm thinking. And others sometimes have no chance to catch up with what I'm thinking either. So the biggest challenge, I'm reminding myself to pause, to slow down, and to, even if I make a mistake, to be gentle with myself. And if others make a mistake, to also understand that we're human and imperfect and just find out what needs to change in processes to minimize the occurrence of mistakes in the future.
Words to live by. What's your guiding principle?
My guiding principle is to live with authenticity and integrity.
And what does that mean to you? We use those words these days so without a lot of meaning. What does that mean in your world?
For me, it means to follow my passion, to be courageous, and really stay true to who I am, and not being afraid of challenges that may bring. And integrity means that I will not compromise my integrity and my honesty in order to achieve my goals or in dealing with other people.
Nice. And what's a skill you didn't know you had that you rely on now?
And that's actually a skill that we managed to talk about, which is my algorithmic thinking. I've only become aware that I'm using my computer science background quite recently, and I realized that I've been using it ever since I graduated. When I graduated, I was so fed up with computer science. I wanted to do everything possible not to ever program again. And so I definitely did not think that I'm going to benefit from this education in such a large way throughout my career. And recently, I've become aware of it, and I was like, "Hmm." So you do not need to create algorithms in Java. Algorithms can be created anywhere.
Oh, wow. You're lucky. You were in Java. I took a computer science course in college in the late 80s, and we were using MS DOS.
Okay, I do not know what that is.
We also had a Commodore 64. I had a Commodore 64, which I wish I'd kept. So
I
you've
think
made me feel really old.
the earliest language I programmed in was BASIC, and then it was Java, and then C++. And that's it.
Okay.
I didn't really program, like I said. And then sometimes I programmed in Visual Basic and Excel, but very very basic stuff. Yet yes, I have no idea what it is now, and there are other
Okay.
people who do it way better.
Uh, It's good to know. And then, extra question: what's one book you would recommend that everyone needs to read?
Well, I would say Think and Grow Rich.
Okay,
It
by
would be
Napoleon Hill that you mentioned
by
earlier.
Napoleon Hill. But for women, I recommend the book by Jen Sincera called You're a Badass.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with that book. Would men get something out of that book as well, or is it really geared towards women?
I think it's geared towards women. For men, I recommend a book called How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big by Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert. They're kind of similar, but just,
Okay.
one is written by a man, one is written by a woman. And they kind of talk about the same stuff. I like both of them.
I'm not familiar with each, so I appreciate the suggestions. I always like to get them. Victoria, this has been really great. Thank you for taking the time. Where can we get in touch with you? Where can we go if we want to pursue your gym concept? Where do we go?
So my website is thestartupstation.com. If you'd like to check out the event that's happening on October 22nd and 23rd, you can click on Power Up Globally Breaking Barriers event. If you'd like to check out the program, you can click on Power Up Globally menu and then Power Up Globally Coaching Program. And then there will be a lot of information available in detail in terms of what's involved. And then we already have 4 programs open for enrollment in November.
Okay. Is there anything else we can do for you? You've been so gracious with your time. Is there something that we could do to make your world better today or tomorrow?
You can share this podcast with your network. And for any female founder, if you have any questions about your business, I'm always available. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or at victoria@thestartupstation.com. I'm always happy to talk.
Awesome. I know you are. You and I actually met, I think, through LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
And it was very quick, and you responded very quickly. So I appreciate that. And it's great to know that you actually pay attention. Thank you for what you do. I think you do some really powerful work to bring different perspectives to entrepreneurship, to bring mindset to it, and to really just broaden the whole ecosystem of business, because I think so much of it is, I hate to say it, but often male-centric. And I think when we bring different perspectives, it just changes things and makes them better. More things in the stew make a better stew than fewer.
Absolutely. When we all work together, I think magic happens.
Great words to leave on. Thank you so much, Victoria.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on the podcast.
That was the Bob Graham Experience. Want to be a guest and experience it for yourself? Visit thebobgrahamexperience.com to get on the list. And of course, please rate us and listen to other episodes wherever you had the Bob Graham Experience. Until next time.